but you said there's a type. There's a type. What's the type? What's the type of Joe Rogan fan?
Anti-establishment.
I think that's not Joe Rogan. That's a general public discourse. There's a default anti-establishment on the right and the left. That's the default easy thing to go to.
I think Joe Rogan fans are definitely a certain type of anti-establishment, though. Like, I could guess the Joe Rogan fan. Like, if I were to do general population versus Joe Rogan fan, who do you think is more likely to be anti-vaccine?
Do you have data on this? Or are you just guessing?
Yeah. Just guessing.
Yeah. I think you are actually judging.
I am.
I think you're judging.
Oh, excellent. We were back on the Lex Fridman show, and he's got this idiot woke liberal debater Destiny, who apparently is big in the online debate stream industry, whatever we call it, the debate space. I think he's an idiot, and he's just he's a contrarian. That I can understand. I'm a bit of a contrarian myself. I know that about myself. My family certainly knows it about me. But of course, they think anybody who goes against the establishment is a contrarian, or anyone who goes against the perceived or received wisdom is a contrarian. And the funny thing is, Destiny is the poster child for contrarianism. But now, because they just mentioned Joe Rogan, because a lot of Joe Rogan's fans apparently are anti-vaccine, which to Destiny therefore means anti-establishment. Now he's somehow against that, even though he's Mr. Contrarian. So he's just contrarian for its own sake. And Lex Fridman just called him out there subtly, saying, "Oh, you have any evidence for that?" And of course, Destiny said no, because and that's his whole shtick in his debates. If you ever have the displeasure or the misfortune to watch one of his debates, it's just him constantly going, source needed, citation needed. What's your source for that? Where's the data? So that's what Destiny's all about. But of course, he's just the same. He'll spew out any old nonsense. If you don't call him out on it, like Lex just did, rightly so, then he'll just keep going. So let's watch them get into it.
I think there are good conversations to be had about a lot of stuff related to how we handled the coronavirus. Were lockdowns effective? Was there enough data to support the huge measures we took? Why didn't we have the option to show I was infected a month ago? Why do I need to be vaccinated? Why wasn't that option ever a thing in the United States? I don't think it was. There are really good questions to be asked there. But all the people asking the questions are also trying to tell you that ivermectin and monoclonal antibodies are the way to go for everything, and the vaccine is evil, and they're just going to turn you gay like the frogs. Yeah, and it's like, Jesus, like you can't, there's like no...
No, not everybody's. See, that's just he just talks. He debates like an online commenter. It's perfectly possible to think that ivermectin can do some good. It has been shown to do some good in certain cases under certain situations. Yeah. And then suddenly if you believe that, next thing you know, you're a flat earther or whatever. So typical Destiny.
Place to reasonably criticize from, because all of the people that are criticizing aren't doing it with an open mind, or they're not reading studies or doing anything. They're saying like, I do my own research, which means they listen to whatever the last guy on Joe Rogan said, and now they're parroting that opinion 100%.
Easy now.
Yeah.
Easy now, bro.
The last guy on Joe Rogan, not Joe Rogan. Okay. That Robert Malone guy on Joe Rogan got me real fired up.
That's one guess.
People see him as like the father of mRNA technology. He published one paper. Okay.
What do you mean people? Which people think that?
Joe Rogan fans. I run into these people. I start arguing with people, and they start citing me. Well, what about?
I'm a Joe Rogan fan, and I appreciate the vaccine.
That's good. I'm glad you do. But there's definitely
but you said there's a type. There's a type. What's the type? What's the type of Joe Rogan fan?
Anti-establishment.
I think that's not Joe Rogan. That's a general public discourse. There's a default anti-establishment on the right and the left. That's the default easy thing to go to.
I think Joe Rogan fans are definitely a certain type of anti-establishment, though. Like, I could guess the Joe Rogan fan. Like, the
establishment have given everybody plenty of reason to be anti-establishment, as far as I'm concerned. Let me know what you think in the comments.
What do you do? General population versus Joe Rogan fan. Who do you think is more likely to be anti-vaccine?
Do you have data on this? Or are you just guessing?
Yeah. Just guessing.
Yeah. I think you are actually judging.
I am.
I think you're judging. Because I think you're also... The beautiful thing about podcasting, this could be similar to streaming, is there's a large number of people that just listen. Like, what does it mean to be a Joe Rogan fan?
I don't think you just listen. I think people listen and absorb the information.
I would say that the Joe Rogan fan base is as divided in the vaccine as the general public.
Gotcha. Man, I'm going to look for polling data on that. I'm sure somebody's got to have done it out there, but
No, but you're basically revealing the fact they have no data. You're using your own judgment.
for sure.
Based
Based on how he's had conversations about how his experience with the coronavirus, and then based on the guests that have come on that have talked and echoed a lot of like anti-vax talking points and been completely unchallenged, and then based on statements he's made about like myocarditis and the vaccine and everything as well. Yeah.
So it's the level of challenge or not that he's doing.
Well, yeah, and then what his true positions are, and then the types of guests he typically chooses to bring on to talk about the vaccines. Yeah.
Okay, but that represents somehow a deep anti-establishment feeling versus just the vaccine. I mean, I've seen the vaccine and other things being a thing that broke people.
I think all the coronavirus, that whole 1 or 2 years broke a lot of people.
There's a lot of emotion, and the emotion quickly solidified into an opinion that almost had nothing to do with like thinking through and updating your knowledge and so on. You just made up your mind.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it comes from that anti-establishment place. Like the vaccine represents the ultimate of establishment. It was a huge private company backed by a huge public government, and there's Fauci, and there's Biden, and there's Pfizer, and there's all these countries locking us up in our homes, telling us to do a thing. Like the vaccine was like the ultimate like submission tool to like show you that the government owns you. Not only do you have to get injected once, it's a series, and then you got to get boosters, and it's like they're trying to keep you under their thumb, and that's the control. I feel like that vaccine became like the ultimate rallying cry between like, do you support? Are you a sellout that is going to believe whatever the government tells the sheep to take, or are you going to be like the guy that stands against the crowd and gets fired from his job and pulls his kids from school because they're not going to let the evil Fauci medicine, jab them in the arm?
And the funny thing is, the crowd that stands against the institution is not larger than the crowd of sheep. There's like one sheep standing there.
Sure, yeah, or it feels that way sometimes.
One vaccinated sheep. Well, okay. What's the defense of institutions? How do you regain the trust of institutions? Like, first of all, do you think that there's ways in which WHO, CDC failed? And do you think there's criticism towards Pfizer and the big pharma companies that's deserved?
Damn, the pharma companies, I'm not sure. For CDC and WHO, so here's a criticism that I have of all of academia, and I feel it stronger and stronger every day. I don't think it's enough to be a researcher or to be correct about issues. Academia needs to increase its ability to communicate. It is just an unbelievable, unmitigated failure that academics are unwilling to wade into the complicated topics that exist today because other people are,
First you call me spineless, and then you call me a bad communicator.
But no, look, you're here, you're doing it, so you get props from me, okay? Good job.
That motherfucker.
But there are like so many, but I'm sure that you must have heard another fellow academic, a fellow colleague, express some amount of frustration about, like, in their specific discipline, they know something to be true, and they know that, like, a lot of the messaging is, like, wrong or bad in the public about it, but they're never going to step out and say anything because either one, they're very measured and careful with their take, which they feel is incompatible with what people want to hear, or two, they're really worried that they might be incorrect, so they're going to be cautious while everybody else is going out and like hardcore in their opinion.
And they also don't have the support of institutions for them to go out on a limb.
Yeah, that too.
So like to take risks. For example, I've heard that with lab leak theory. I've had a lot of virologist friends that are like, yeah, it's obviously leaked from a lab,
Okay.
like early on.
Oh, maybe, okay. We can fight over this one, but sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so Destiny's going to fight over that. Destiny knows better than Lex Fridman's biologist friends, the actual academics, the actual researchers. They make an educated assumption or an educated guess about the origin of the coronavirus, and Destiny, of course, automatically knows that that's not true. So typical.
Keep talking.
We can fight over this. But like I should sort of backstep and say, like, that's like you talk about shooting the shit. You haven't really investigated, but it's your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. They would never say that publicly.
Of course.
Mostly because you're saying, like, what they would all say is, like, we want to see data.
Yeah, which would be good, which is fine.
So they're going with, like this is too many coincidences in the same place. That's the logic. But they don't want to say anything because there's no data. You need to have evidence. You need to have actual evidence to say one way or the other. There's that. But there's also, just like you said, I mean, effective communication. You're a fan of Sean Carroll.
Yes. He's like one of the only people in this whole planet that I like besides you. I love Sean Carroll.
Anytime Sean Carroll is brought up as evidence, there's a smile that comes over your face.
I love
of like
such-
joy.
yeah.
Of like a little kid thinking about Santa Claus. Okay, I love Sean Carroll too. People should
Just to be
listen to
clear,
this podcast.
I love Sean Carroll because I hate this divide between like you're either STEM or you're like philosophy, arts, and all that other stuff, and the two worlds can never cross. And I love that he was so good at physics, but like explores and pays attention to all of the like sociological stuff too. It's
This Sean Carroll guy sounds kind of interesting. I don't know anything about him. Never even heard of him. If you do, if you have any, clips that you think I should check out, please leave them in the comments. I'd really appreciate it.
so rare to find that quality in a person.
He's legit one of the really, really, really special minds. But you don't have to be a Sean Carroll. You can be just a little better at educating. Another person in the medical and the health space is somebody named Andrew Huberman, a friend of mine from Stanford. He's an incredible educator. There's the kind of process in science they usually call like review or survey papers, where you basically summarize all that's going on, integrate it, and like draw wisdom from it, and also project like where's the discipline headed. And Andrew does that basically on all these subcomponents of the different stuff going on in neuroscience and biology, neurobiology, all of that. He does a podcast called Huberman Lab, where he just summarizes all and is able to explain like what does that actually mean for your life in terms of protocols of how to make your life better. I feel like people should be able to do that more and more. But with virology and oh boy, that's a tricky one. That's
All right. Before they get off too far in the weeds. Yeah, so I think this is a pretty good example of Lex Fridman just schooling Destiny and showing Destiny up for what a hypocritical idiot he is, despite the fact that he talks fast. And when in his debates, that's basically his debating technique, is to talk fast and just say a lot of things at his adversary, and pose so many questions that the adversary can only reply to one, and he's off to the next 10 questions. So never been a fan. Lex Fridman, I've always been a bit meh about, but I quite liked him in this interview here with Destiny. So I will be checking out more Lex Fridman. I know some of you some of my listeners here got annoyed with me because in previous videos I've said, what's the big deal with Lex Fridman? And some of you said that I was an idiot for not knowing more about him. So I'm learning. In the meantime, though, let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about Destiny, or if you even care about Destiny, and this whole issue here. And in the meantime, like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.